Welcome into the only place that sports fans want to be on a Friday night, alongside Sports Director Trayvon Miles and Sports Anchor Jeff Harris. I'm Julian Sador.
That's exactly right. Welcome into the only show focused on all sports here on the Eastern Shore, of course, Delmarva Sports Insider.
And the summer is finally upon us, but before we can jump into some basketball and some summer league action, we have to kind of recap the year ahead, specifically in the Bayside. A lot of great moments and some top moments that we had.
That's right. I'm going to pull my Ryan Eldridge dad joke. The kids say no cap. We're going to recap. There we go.
Oh, come on.
We're going to cut that out now.
Right.
We're going to cut that
No,
out.
but we do have a special treat for everybody. We've been kind of hinting towards it.
That's right. Over the next 2 weeks, we're counting down the best moments in the high school sports season. And we begin in the great state of Maryland. To start it off, sending it over to the wall to Jonah Restuccio.
What a way to start it off, Julian. We'll count things backwards, starting with the honorable mentions, working ourselves to the #1 moment from the Bayside Conference. Our first honorable mention belongs to 3 of the top high school players from the Bayside: Y-High's Jaden Baker, Colonel's Deontay Dickerson, and Kent County's Jay Sean Freeman. They all scored their 1,000th point on the same night, January 22nd. Dickerson and Freeman will be back dominating the local high school courts for their senior seasons, while Baker has transferred to the Christ School in Virginia. Our second honorable mention, one of the cooler stories this past year, the Battle of the Brothers. Decatur's B.J. Johnson and Snow Hill's Sean Johnson took their sibling rivalry to the next level, coaching against each other twice for the first time. B.J. and his Seahawks won both matchups in the Worcester County rivalry, making an interesting conversation come the holidays or the family barbecue. I really wonder, I wonder if they actually bet on each other. And an extension from our first honorable mention, those 3 weren't just the only milestone makers in this past winter season. Denasia Roberts from Washington was the main headline, eclipsing 2,000 points for the Jags. Also joining her was Parkside's Jackie Wright, who hit 1,000 points in the 2A playoffs as a sophomore. Bennett's Zaire Smolin, she did it as a junior. Mardella's Armani Banks, you saw her just a few clips ago, she rounded out the crew on the girls' side. For the boys, Y-High's Dorian Stevens did it with a combined tally from his 3 years at Washington and 1 year with the Indians. In our final honorable mention from the spring season, 3 lacrosse teams bringing home regional titles. James M. Bennett, their first ever title in the 3A, as they walked it off against Mount Hebron and on a Braden Glushakow goal. Parkside, they were the champions of the 2A as they crushed Falston. And out in Berlin, the Stephen Decatur girls, 3A East champs. All 3 of these teams dropped in the state Final Four, but still an incredible season for our Lax fans and players on the Eastern Shore. To get that top 10 countdown started, back over to the desk.
Joni, you mentioned it. Honorable mentions out of the way, so it is now time officially. Drumroll, thank you, to get the countdown started with number 10. And mind you, a difficult task bringing it down to just 10. I don't envy your job.
Yeah, just off what Jonah named, so many great things happened in the Bayside this season. But without further ado, let's get into the top 10.
Yes.
Coming in at number 10.
Here we go.
Football coach Brendan Riley and
Give it
those
up.
Parkside football fighting Rams.
That's right.
Parkside made the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. They beat Kent Island and Queen Anne's, both for the first time ever, likely. And of course, their run ended. Yeah, come on. And that guy's racking up the offers. Of course, their run ended at North Carolina in round 1. But to me, a sign of things to come for this program. In past years, we've talked about it on our studio show. Could Parkside get over the hump and get into the playoffs? I think they managed that this year, and they have a great time going forward.
Yeah, that's right. Parkside racking in the Division I offers, but we got to move on now to number 9. All right, here we go. Stephen Decatur softball lands in that number 9 spot. The girls doing absolute work all season long, capturing their first Bayside championship, guys, in 19 years. Wow. Yeah, that's a shot. This senior class had a feeling they could make a run, and the Bayside crown was certainly on their radar, and then they captured it, of course. The Seahawks will go on to drop to Northeast in the state tournament, but a big congratulations goes out to the softball team and Coach Kurtz for a season definitely one to remember.
Yeah, and what a season they had. All right, on to number 8, our first basketball entry into the top 10, the Queen Anne's Lady Lions. Shout out to Coach Kern and his ladies. Back-to-back regional titles. I'll tell you why this is special. Now, they made it to the state title game a year ago. This past season, they fell in the state semis. But when I was at their regional final against Boston, I noticed the banner. Those 2 years were the first ever girls hoops regionals in school history. And this is a school that was built in 1966, so 53 years in the making, and these ladies are back-to-back regional champions. What a feeling for them.
Also a buzzer beater to continue on their season in that state tournament. All right, on to number 7. Guys, what can we say?
Yeah, these guys.
About Chrisfield boys basketball. This is 7 this past season. I think we all knew that this team specifically this year was primed for a run, and they made it all the way to the Maryland Class 1A state semifinals at the Xfinity Center. Of course, they would go on to drop in that game. Justin Cohen, Courtray Fontaine, the Waters brothers leading the charge for the Crabbers all season long. Now, also, got to mention this. They scored 116 points in one game this season.
They did do that,
I understand they were playing St. Michael's.
Yeah, well, still.
It's still 116 points.
That's hard to do in a video game.
Yeah, just going to say, I mean, that's a remarkable feat. Definitely got to give it up for Chrisfield this season. One to remember for them.
Yeah, and those guys got to Xfinity Center. Didn't get their goal they wanted, but they got across the bridge. And a huge shout out to those guys. All right, on to number 6. Number 6, a shout out to our track stars of the Bayside. The conference racked up over 10 state championships in the state title meets. Brian Duperville of Bennett, London Drummond of Decatur, Clayton Tyler and Blake Walton of Easton, Emily Lewis, Jenny Roberts, and Kendron Wayman of North Carolina, Juliana Meza Shockley of Snow Hill, and Kyle Knoll of Chrisfield. If I missed anybody, please forgive me, but there were so many champions. And when I went out there to the Bayside track and field meet, I got to see some of the talent. These guys were blazing, and that is why they are champions.
And I think we kind of touched on it as we were watching this. I mean, so many tough picks there. I'm surprised Chrisfield came in where they did. So I have to ask you guys again, how tough of a job was this to craft the top 10?
Well, listen, Chrisfield and Havre de Grace automatically stands out because we already knew that night. You remember that night?
It was 3.5 hours away. We're watching it on Facebook Live. It was just pandemonium.
It was an amazing night, and Havre de Grace came in unbeaten, and we were wondering, could Chrisfield go to their gym 3.5 hours from Chrisfield, almost 4 hours, and slay the giant, and they made it happen. Obviously, they didn't get it done, in the state championships. But also shout out to Bennett in North Carolina. They also made some good playoff runs, and we might see them a little later in the show.
And I think you definitely have to speak to some of these teams and some of these upperclassmen because they have, kind of down junior years, sophomore years, but they have enough confidence to come back their senior year and they say, listen, we're going to kind of flip the switch a little bit, and we're going to make sure that we go out with a bang, just like Stephen Decatur softball, 19 years. These girls could have given up, but they said, no, we're going to end our last year on the high school diamond with a Bayside crown. So for those girls, the rest of the teams, big congratulations. And we're going to see a lot of these kids back this year as well.
I was just getting ready to say that. And all right, we have already cracked the top 5 and some honorable mention.
Yes.
But the first 5, I should say. But that's going to do it for the first 5. Coming up, we're counting down a few more moments in the season, including another amazing year at the Governor's Challenge. Keep it here.
This is Coach McCormick from North Carolina High School, and you're watching Delmarva Sports Insider.